This episode of Brace for Impact is brought to you with the support of Ranmore Fund Management Limited. Ranmore is an independent UK investment firm applying a value-driven investment philosophy to global equities. It's focused on generating real returns for clients. Capital is at risk. Please see ranmorefunds.com for more details. Welcome back to Series 2 of Brace for Impact, the podcast where we champion modern philanthropy in a changing world. I'm Mary Rose Gunn, founder and chief executive of FOR, the UK's only venture philanthropy fund backing the best small charities and social enterprises. Today, I am delighted to welcome my guest, Henry Engelhardt, founder and chief exec emeritus of the Admiral Group. Admiral's remarkable growth with Henry at the helm is one of Wales's greatest business success stories. From a startup with just 57 employees to the only FTSE 100 company based in Wales, it has 15,000 staff and a turnover in the billions. Admiral has created opportunities across the country and transformed communities, but his commercial success is just one part. Alongside his wife, Deanne, Henry was recently given the First Minister's Special Award in recognition of the thousands of jobs created by Admiral and the philanthropic work of their foundation, Moondance. Since Moondance was founded in 2010, it has given more than 200 million to charities across Wales and the world and is creating lasting change in communities. Henry, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a real pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me. Very pleased to be included in the guest list.
Thank you. I'd love to start with talking about Admiral. I mean, clearly this is a brand name that everybody has heard of, but what is the story behind the scaling of the business? And when you look back, was there a particular moment or a decision or a piece of advice that changed the company's trajectory?
Well, we started Admiral. We were working for a managing agent at Lloyd's of London. There were 5 of us. We wrote the business plan. We got approval to get going, and we launched on January 2nd, 1993. And we were no customers and 57 staff that first morning, and we're now, 34 years later, and we've got 6-7 million customers and a market capitalization of over 10 billion pounds. So it's been a pretty good run, and I think a lot of that came from being very creative, being willing to take chances. Being almost with a mindset of let's do it differently, and that has kept the company going very well throughout its history. So one moment, I don't know if there's a single moment, but we did. The 90s were a rough decade for a number of reasons, internally, externally, markets, etc. And we did an MBO at the end of 1999. And at that same time, we did some reinsurance agreements. So we partnered with very big reinsurance companies. And from that time on, it's been a pretty good, steady ride upwards. And so it's been a good run for the last 25, 26 years.
A very good run, I think it's fair to say. And with Moondance Foundation, are you looking for similar moments where, like the MBO moment, where you can, as a philanthropic foundation, support through a moment of change?
No, I think, we started giving privately and, in our own name. And then we said, well, we need to formalize this a bit. And in 2010, we indeed set up a Moondance. And we do give to all sorts of causes around the world, but more and more, it's dedicated to our home, which is Wales. And now about 80% of what we do stays in Wales. And what we found, though, is, there's no shortage of good causes. So, we're just trying to help where we can. My wife also set up something called the Moondance Cancer Initiative, because Wales typically comes out at the bottom of the league tables for cancer results for people who survive cancer. And so, we're trying to improve outcomes in Wales for people with cancer.
It's hugely impactful and very impressive ambitions. With the relationship between Admiral and Moondance, how was it that you tell us a little bit more about the story of how you turned the entrepreneurial success of the business into a really structured kind of long-term philanthropic project, and how Admiral's success drives the relationship between Admiral's success and Moondance?
Well, there's a pretty strong link there because Moondance is one of the largest shareholders in Admiral. Because what we do is we give shares, our personal shares, we give them to Moondance. And then the dividend flow from Admiral is sufficient basically to donate to other charities during the year to the tune of some 30 million a year. And Moondance has ridden the coattails of Admiral. Moondance must be somewhere around 6% of Admiral, and Admiral has that value of circa 10 billion. So you can see that Moondance is, at the moment, pretty well endowed.
Yeah, it's doing all right. Henry, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your motivations. Why did you set up Moondance? Why was it so important for you that Admiral and the success of Admiral was about more than just being a business?
Well, it's just the right thing to do. I mean, it's not, I don't like the term giving back. I don't like that because it's not like we took something and we're giving it back. We're going to sneak it back in so you don't notice that it's missing. It's more about, we've got choices. We've got this wealth and we can do with it sort of what we want. And we want to help other people around us that they might have similar opportunities. So that's a big thing. For instance, we give a small amount of money each year to my old high school for kids who are under the poverty line to go to prom. And we get the most fantastic letters back from them each year. They handwrite notes to us to say thank you and I never would have done this without it. It was the best night of my life and so forth. Well, I don't want to go there, but it's just so gratifying to be able to help people to do things or create organizations to help other people to do things that they couldn't do without it. And it's those other people, the people who are running and working those charitable organizations, they're the ones really doing the heavy lifting. And for those people, we have a huge amount of respect.
Well, it sounds like you are the ideal type of funder because you are in there pulling up a chair alongside them. You're looking at giving them unrestricted funding and supporting them to do more and with better outcomes.
Yes, very important, the unrestricted. A lot of, some organizations will say, I'll give you this, but only if you do that. And we say, look, if we're going to give to this organization, it's because they know what to do with it. And therefore we give it to them and expect they will use it to do the right thing. And if they don't, then there may not be future. But if there is, then there is future. Yeah. And we, in fact, a huge proportion now of what we give each year is repeat donations.
You are the epitome of a good grant maker. We are such advocates of unrestricted multi-year funding.
Yes.
And yes, we couldn't agree with that more. And it's something that we really try and champion and advocate for us. Do you have any words of advice for other entrepreneurs that are in the position that you have been in about, why it's a good thing and what it brings to you to set things up in the way you did?
I might surprise you. I'm going to say no. Everybody's their own person. Some people feel that helping others is what to do with their wealth. Some people think that they should do other things with their wealth. They won't go into what. It's, ours is not to tell people what to do with their money. Ours is to do with our money what we think is the right thing to do.
Yes, I love that, in that you have each to their own is essentially what
Each to their own.
Each to their own. Everybody, I think, who is listening to this will have noticed that you don't really sound like you're from Wales. I think it's fair to say.
It's 30 some odd years, 34, 35 years, and I haven't quite got the accent yet. But it's interesting because, so you may have picked up, if you're really good at accents, that I'm American. And when I go home in America, it's not the accent. It's not quite a pure American accent anymore, but it's the words. And if I say to them, put the brolly in the boot with the nappies, they look at me like I've fallen out of a tree. Well, what? What language are you talking? They don't have a clue what I'm saying.
Why is Wales so special, though? What is it that completely? Because I mean,
Well, it's home. The people are very nice. We moved out there because they offered us a grant to locate the business there. We didn't even know where it was. I remember this is in before all the sophisticated GPS things. We laid a big paper map on the table. We were living in suburban London at the time, and I said to Diane, somebody said if you just follow the M4, you'll eventually find. Oh, there it is. There's Cardiff. We didn't know where it was, so we went there not really knowing what to expect, and it's a great place. The outdoors life is great as long as you don't mind getting wet from time to time. It is green for a reason. But the people are lovely. I think we had more people say hello to us when we moved into Wales than we said goodbye to after 4 years in suburban London.
Yeah, that doesn't completely surprise me. Sadly, London can be very kind of fractured as a place. But you do a lot of your philanthropy through Moondance is very place-based, and you are supporting a lot of communities in a very deep and impactful way. How do you feel that getting involved in a particular area in a specific geographic location is a more effective way of being
Well, it's necessary. There just isn't that much wealth in Wales. In London, somebody wants to raise some money, they can. In fact, there's an event that's held every couple of years in Cardiff, and the same type of event in London, where they have chefs cook for each table, and then they auction off the chefs as a way to make money for the charity. And they did this in Wales, and they routinely raise huge sums for Wales, about 250,000 or something like that. And a friend of mine was telling me about their experience of going to the same thing in London, and they raised over $1 million. There's just a lot more money here, and Wales just needs it. It suffers from not getting that kind of philanthropic attention, and so we're there, and this is our home. These are our neighbors. We need to support the community.
Yeah. Community strengthening and community philanthropy, it's something that we hugely believe in and we love. I'd love to ask you a bit more about your family and how you've got them involved in all of this, because Diane is on the board and is very involved, as you've already mentioned, around raising awareness of cancer treatment and support. But you also have your children on the board. Why do you think it's so important to get family?
Well, it's interesting, and it is a fork in the road. First of all, Diane's the chair of the Moondance and the driving force behind Moondance, and the MCI, Moondance Cancer Initiative. But having the kids on, there's a split as to whether you want to leave it as a legacy or you want to spend it all in your lifetime. And we've kind of gone down the route of we want to leave it as a legacy. And if we're going to do that, we need to pass it on to somebody. Who better than the kids, right? And so they are part of it. Now, I wouldn't say that they're hugely involved at this aspect. They're all, young adults and growing and having their own lives and building their own careers and things. And but eventually I would expect they would take over more and more. And one of the debates you hear is that if you do it where the whole family of one fund for the whole family, it ends up being, fratricide and internal war. And on the other side, people set up separate funds for each of their kids. Warren Buffett is famous for setting up separate funds for each of his. But we've taken the view that actually this should unite them, not divide them, because there's enough money to go around that if somebody says, I have a cause I want to support, and somebody else says, I have a cause I want to support, oh, okay, we'll support them both. That is very, very possible. And we'd expect that they will work together and stay together as a team long after we're gone and continue the Moondance initiatives and path.
At the moment, what sort of infrastructure do you have in place to help with?
We have a fabulous director, and she's got an assistant.
Yeah, so not huge amounts.
No.
Because you are funding transformational change at Moondance, which is something that it's very close to our hearts at the Four as well. But what's your definition of it, and how do you find the sorts of projects that you want to work with and the charities initiatives?
No problem finding projects. They walk in the door. There's more applications than there is money to go around. But one of the things we do is called the Big Give, or the Big Donation, where we invite selected charities to apply for a game-changing donation, circa £1 million. And they get to write 4 pages, double-spaced, no attachments, no slideshows with it, just 4 pages on what they would do that would change their game if they had that million. And then we will get together, all the trustees, and take a look at them and figure out what to do. And that way we invite people to really make that big difference. So it may be that they need their own premises to continue. And we've done that before. Yeah, that's a game changer.
I'd love you to tell me about your favorite, or a couple of your favorite projects.
Well, gosh,
initiatives.
It's funny. It's often the little ones that really make a difference, and we have met some just incredible people along the way. There's a gentleman up in Scotland who started an organization to feed kids in the poorest countries of the world if they go to school. So he provides the money for the kitchen and the food, and local people staff it, and it's local produce. And if the kid comes, they get a meal to go to school. And he started from absolutely nothing, and he now feeds 3 million kids a day around the world. It's just what individuals can do. It's just amazing.
It is staggering.
It's staggering.
The world change starts in the world with one person.
Yes,
it really does.
Yes, but there was there's a lot. There was another one. Again, you should have my wife here, not me. So she was listening to the radio one day, and on the way to take the kids to school, and there was a story about this charity which helped people from the valleys get to and from Cardiff for cancer treatments, because otherwise somebody else would have to take a day off, and of course the person getting the treatment can't drive back, and this kind of thing. So they'd lost their funding, and they were going to go out of business. And she said, what? And she looked them up, and they were real, and they'd been around a while, and so it wasn't just some fly-by-night thing. And so she gets on the phone, and she says to the lady who picks up the phone, she says, I would like to talk to so-and-so, who had been named in the on the radio show. I'm sure she'll want to talk to me. And the lady says, well, she's in a meeting right now. She was in a board meeting. She said on the radio she was in a board meeting that day. No, she'll really want to talk to me, she says. And she explained who she was. And the lady came on the phone, and my wife just simply said, your funding is sorted. And we've been funding them ever since. That was over a decade ago. And they're a fabulous organization, and they help so many people in an area of the country which is really deprived. And then one more, if you've got a moment for it.
Love it.
So got a letter one day, and it was these ladies who had a lawn bowling group, but they'd run out of funding, and the funding was being cut. And so again, my wife, she went out there, and she met with them, and they said, we're doing things, trying to raise some money, but we really need £2,000. And so wrote her a check and gave it to her, and they were gobsmacked. And of course it kept their and the youngest person on the team was 80, right? And so she goes back the next year, she contacts them, and the lady says to her, no, we're sorted this year, dear. We did bake sales, we've raised the money, thank you so much, and we really, really appreciate what you've done for us to keep us going. And it was that little collective of older women who, this was their community, this was their place to get together and meet and enjoy interaction with other people. And we were able to keep that going for, £2,000.
Yeah, it's amazing how, and I think a lot of people don't really realize how very small amounts of money can make a huge difference.
Really?
In giving to the right place and the right people. Because I mean, we as an organisation, as you know, we are really into finding and backing high potential grassroots organisations and trying to connect them with the networks and the resources and the skills that they need. Do you think that philanthropists understand how much of an opportunity there is out there to have an enormous impact with not necessarily large sums of money? Or do you think that, you know, the sort of wider world talks a lot about, you know, George Soros and Gates and all of these people who are giving huge amounts of money, and actually it can sometimes put people off because they think, what's the point?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think if more people understood how £5,000, £10,000 could make such a big difference to so many organizations, then they'd say, yeah, I've got £5,000 to give. But when people think of philanthropy, maybe it's even just the word, they think, oh, I have to have hundreds of thousands or millions or something like that to make a difference. And that's just not the case.
Yeah, it really isn't. We couldn't agree with that more. Because it's also, as well, not just about money. You know, the business mindset can be incredibly valuable when you are talking to philanthropic charities, projects, businesses. Where have you found that it is most useful coming at it from the angle of being a very successful entrepreneur? But also, where do you find it doesn't translate and you need to sometimes rethink?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that much contact with the charities, but I do think it's such a different environment. And, you know, I come from, you know, you've got to drive for profit. And a charity doesn't. And you've got to be very careful as a charity that you don't slip into complacency and extra costs where not needed, because there isn't this really drive to eke out every sou that you possibly can. And so I'm much more involved with social impact businesses because they are there to make a profit, but they're there to do a social good. And that I find really quite amazing. There's some amazing businesses and initiatives going on.
Yeah, tell me more about Rightwood, because that's
our business arm, and we have, you know, we one of the key rules to Rightwood is that whatever we invest in has to do a social good, and we invest in a device to help people who are in difficult situations be able to give a call for help. This is in the U.S. We've got a business in the UK here which helps to basically clean water without chemicals in a unique way, and it can process large volumes, and it could clean up a lot of the things you read about, or we're reading about every day now in the rivers and so forth. And it's, for instance, making big inroads now into some of the, like, you know, chicken farms or beetroot farms or things that produce a lot of toxic waste, and that's going in to our water supply. So that's a and they're doing some really big projects in Ecuador, in particular, so that's a really interesting social impact business.
You have your own separate structure through which you do this investing through Rightwood. I'm right. Why did you set up that as a separate structure? Why did that need to be done?
Because that's for profit.
Okay.
Whereas everything that Moondance done is donated.
Yeah. So Rightwood is sort of a family office.
Yes.
Almost.
Family office.
Okay. And do you think that there should be more of an awareness of having a positive impact with investing amongst the broader investment community?
Absolutely. I think there's a big space in the market, and I have no idea. It may be being filled, but it is saying we're only going to invest where there's positive social impact. And how you define that, okay, you know, somebody's positive social impact could be different than others, but by and large, I think we could agree on most things. And yes, I think a lot of people would be very attracted to that. Plus, you could make some very good money.
Yeah, absolutely.
These are businesses. They are charities.
Where do you see that business is actually much more appropriate in helping communities where charities can't?
Yes, I think, you know, some of them need to be driven because it's that drive for profit that makes them better very often, because you're pushing hard to be better than competition and to make sure that you are eking out everything you can from that as a business.
Yeah.
And so I think it pushes you hard to keep improving and keep moving and keep changing and accelerating your growth if possible. So I think it is very positive.
You, as a foundation and as a philanthropist, are giving grants at a really large scale in many instances. Do you think that, and have you noticed that when you're giving much larger sums of money, it changes the relationship sometimes, and there is the responsibility that comes with that? How do you address that?
Well, we try and find the right amount for the organization. You know, an organization that's asking for £25,000, we're not going to step up and say, hey, this is great, we'll give you $500,000, because they wouldn't know what to do with it, right? And then some of the larger organizations, I mean, we've been long supporters of the charity to help children in Wales, and we give them sizable sums. And if they're overall, you know, UK, it's a modest portion of what they get from everybody, but it's important to them in Wales, and so you know, we have to make sure that it fits the charity, and to give that kind of a charity, you know, £25,000, they'd say, great, thanks, we're not going to turn it down, but you know, it's not really going to mean much to them.
So it sounds to me like when you give a very wide range of donations, you'll give some that are much larger and some that are much smaller. What is the common theme that runs through how you're giving away funding?
Well, I'd say the common theme is that they all have to have impact. That, you know, the donation is meaningful to the organization we're giving it to. And, you know, we're giving $25,000 to the NSPCC in Wales, that's going to be small beer. They're going to say thanks, you know, they'll take it, but yeah, it's not a big deal. But if we gave $1 million to Merthyr Women, which is trying to help women in Merthyr Tydfil be more active and in better shape, they're going to go, what are we going to do with this? Because we only need 25,000 or whatever it might be. So finding the right amount, the appropriate amount that has an impact on the organization we're giving it to.
That's something that, we couldn't agree with more as well as an organization. It's about, I mean, we call of that is catalyzing and transforming at a kind of donation level. How do you think about measuring your own impact as an organization? Or do you feel like you're happy with the individual projects and looking at those on an individual level rather than...
I think the latter. Yeah, I think we don't sit there and go, oh, you know, how great is Moondance? You know, we know that in Wales this is very necessary, and we're doing a lot for the community, and we do get very positive feedback, not to, as you mentioned, from the First Minister herself, well, when she was the First Minister, not long ago. But it's really about, are we doing the right thing for enough organizations with the funds we have to distribute?
And if somebody was listening who is thinking about taking their first step into philanthropy and getting involved, what would be your advice to them, or what would be your call to action?
Find a cause that's close to your heart. Start there. You know, if you say, oh, but everybody's giving to the Heart Association, it's a heart, close to your heart. But if that's what you feel like, you know, some other people will give to a different association. You know, the money is always needed. So I'd say just start somewhere that you say, I really want to do something here. And if it's $5,000 or it's $105,000 or $1 million and $5,000, that's all good.
I couldn't agree more. It's just get going, because the moment you start is the moment you find out what you enjoy and what works and what doesn't work.
That's right.
Henry, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure to be able to talk to you and hear more about all of the incredible things that you're doing in Wales for Wales, both you and Jan and all of the rest of your family. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
A sincere thank you to all of you as well for listening. If you like this episode and would like to hear more about philanthropy and social impact, please do follow, share, and subscribe to the Brace for Impact podcast. Listen on all of the major listening platforms or watch the videos on our website, the4.org. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you soon.